Many claim Hamas is diverting or obstructing aid. How should the international community respond to this?
Look, some aid has disappeared. There is no doubt about it because of the chaotic situation. But this issue has been investigated ad nauseum. It's been investigated by international NGOs. It has been investigated by the UN. It has been investigated by the United States of America. It's been investigated by USAID before it was dismantled. And the conclusion was there is no basis to this allegation. Number one. It's very clear, number two, that the same state of Israel that seems to be repeating this allegation claimed 10 months after the beginning of the war that essentially Hamas has been dismantled. If Hamas has been dismantled, how could Hamas be taking over all these supplies going in? I think it's an excuse basically to starve the population in Gaza as a blackmail to use at the negotiating table with Hamas.
And do you see a role for Arab countries in the current crisis, especially in terms of aid distribution?
Of course, there has always been a role for Arab countries. Some of them have engaged in the distribution from the very beginning. Almost every Arab country in the vicinity of the conflict has engaged in basically contributing humanitarian aid, humanitarian supplies, financing UN efforts, financing international NGOs. Some directly participated, like in the case of Jordan. They even did airdrop supplies a year and a half before the world community began to do it most recently, just in recent days. So Arab countries have a role, and some have engaged in that role. The problem is the United States came in and decided to basically control the process unnecessarily. The process was working. It wasn't perfect. No war situation works perfectly. But I think the Trump administration, since day one, essentially decided to break the system. When you break the system, you own it. And it has been costly. It's been costly in lives. This outfit that Israel decided to put in charge of distribution with the help of the United States, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is a front for Israel, defended by IDF soldiers, has been a total disaster. More than 1,422 people as of this minute have been killed while seeking aid at the sites, the 4 sites managed by this outfit. 10,067 civilians, including children, have been injured at those sites. And there is no reason to those sites. The UN was doing fine. The international NGOs was doing fine. One could have investigated whether Hamas is, funneling some of the aid to its own families or its own cronies, but that didn't happen. No serious investigation by the administration itself at the White House. They simply mimicked Israeli allegations that were not founded.
At the same time, I want to discuss the role of Egypt. It shares a border with Gaza, and they seem to have turned their backs on Gazans and their plight.
Egypt would deny that, of course. I'm not a fan of Egyptian policy toward Gaza. Frankly, they have subjugated their relationship with the Palestinians in Gaza to their bilateral relationship or peace treaty with Israel, and allowed it to be linked to the U.S. foreign aid package to Egypt. So Egypt is somewhat blackmailed in terms of what it can and can't do. Egypt could have done a lot more in terms of opening the border, in terms of pressuring and forcing Israel, with whom it has supposedly a peace treaty and a modus vivendi. It could have forced the Israelis to allow more aid to come in and could have prevented this humanitarian crisis. Instead, it chose to play by the rule, by the law, and ending up contributing to this crisis.
And how do you see Hamas's latest stance on Palestinian statehood, knowing that that bargaining position is a no-go for Israel and the rest of the world. They don't seem to be collaborating with a real solution for this crisis, especially in humanitarian terms.
Well, look, Hamas's position with regards to statehood has been complicated and evolving for decades. Initially, Hamas, as an Islamist group, actually opposed Palestinian statehood unless it led to an Islamist state throughout the region. In other words, not just Palestine by itself. So they opposed the nationalistic aspiration of fellow Palestinians with regard to Palestinian statehood on its own. However, in recent years, under duress, if you will, they have accepted the two-state solution in their own way by insisting, though, on a role to play. Now they are being asked to commit suicide in this process. In other words, the U.S. Position and the Israeli position, which basically mimics the Israeli position, they remain the same. The dismantlement of Hamas militarily and politically. No political entity commits suicide anywhere, not in the States, not in Israel, not in Europe, nowhere. And to expect Hamas to do that, and we hear it, I mean, it's admitted even by the President of the United States when he says if Hamas wants to play tough, it knows what the results are going to be. And he said that, quote, and I'm quoting him, they are afraid of the end result because he knows the end result is to dismantle them. And so they continue to support a negotiated process, but they would like the conflict to end. I don't think they necessarily are asking for Palestinian statehood in advance. I think Hamas is asking for a permanent ceasefire, while the U.S. and Israel are not willing to engage in that, are not willing to commit to that, and therefore Hamas is not changing the ballgame. It's mostly, actually, as Mr. Witkoff knows very well, I don't have to tell him that. It's Netanyahu that keeps moving the goalpost and changing the rules of the game at mid-game.
And Khalil, the death toll in Gaza increases daily. There hasn't been any stopping despite the offensive by Israel. Diplomatic efforts from across the world and other efforts. How do you envision a realistic end to this conflict?
Yeah, unfortunately, you're right. Today we are at day 666 of this conflict, and more than 62,300 Palestinians have died. Let's assume, as Israel claims, about 20,000 of them were related to Hamas or affiliated with Hamas. That makes 42 to 43,000 civilians. That is morally and politically unacceptable, and it has to stop. And that's why world public opinion is turning against Israel, because they finally realize that Israeli objectives are impossible to achieve. The previous administration reached that conclusion, but this administration apparently doesn't. So therefore, we are destined to continue this futile war, in spite of the fact that we have a president who ran for office claiming that he's against futile wars, permanent wars, endless wars, costly wars. That's exactly what he is supporting, what he is arming in Gaza.
Khalil Jahshan, thank you for your time and insights. Great having you.